The problem of evil, the most challenging question of life. Section 1. Moral evil and the free will defense. Formulation of the problem. The problem: if an omnipotent, omniscient, and omnibenevolent God exists, why is there so much human injustice, crime, and cruelty? Two versions of the problem. Logical: the simultaneous existence of God plus moral evil is logically incompatible. Evidential: probabilistic: the volume and intensity of moral evils provide strong evidence against the existence of God, with classical attributes. Core response: free will defense. Claim: the value of genuine moral freedom is so high that a benevolent God would create a world where humans can freely choose good or evil, even if that freedom leads to crime. Authentic freedom means God cannot, not due to lack of power but logically, force free individuals to always choose good, because coercive compulsion renders freedom meaningless. Stronger version: it may even be possible, as some philosophers argue, that in every world God could actualize with free beings like us. Some of those beings would inevitably commit serious evils. Strength: preserves moral responsibility. The agent of crime is humans, not God. Explains our lived experience. We know that free decisions can be truly destructive. 6 major objections and common responses. Objection 1. Freedom without Auschwitz. Question: couldn't God create a world with freedom but with limited intensity of evils, e.g., no genocide, child torture, or rape? Common responses. Consequence complexity: if you cap consequences, the meaning of real responsibility and real good-evil diminishes. People learn that nothing truly catastrophic happens, which hollows out ethics from within. Cut-off problem: wherever you draw the line, e.g., maximum suffering X, the question remains, why not a bit lower, higher? And why wouldn't cases near the boundary create new injustices? Objection 2. Soft divine prevention. Question: why doesn't God use internal external nudges to prevent horrific evils? E.g., the attacker suddenly regrets, the gun jams, police happen to be there. Common responses. If these nudges are systematic and reliable, effective freedom and real responsibility erode again. People know the system will save them. If they are rare and hidden on a large scale, the statistical pattern of evil would still decrease significantly, leading back to the question, why not more always? Objection 3. Unjust distribution of suffering. Innocent victims pay the cost of sinners' choices. Is this compatible with justice? Common responses. Afterlife compensatory justice. The full picture of justice isn't limited to this world. Compensation and final judgment occur beyond this scene. Soul-making: it's not just the agent but everyone who has the opportunity for moral spiritual growth in facing evil. Major objection: this explanation isn't convincing for some horrific evils. Objection 4. Volume and intensity of evils. Holocaust, child torture. Common responses. Epistemic skepticism, skeptical theism. We lack the epistemic tools to judge the entire divine plan. Absence of observable reason doesn't mean absence of real reason. Critique: risk of moral silence and suspension of human judgment. Objection 5. Children disabled. They aren't full moral agents. Why should they bear the burden of others' moral evils? Common responses. System of stable laws. For free actions to be meaningful, we must live in a world with stable causal laws. This stability also includes the possibility of unintended negative consequences. Transcendent compensation meaning-making. Again, the afterlife response or defeat of horrific evil in relation to higher goods, a controversial but important response in analytic theology. Objection 6. Structural institutional evil. Slavery, genocide, deceptive propaganda. These aren't just individual decisions, structures create and reinforce them. Common responses. Free will defense says, structures are products of accumulated free choices. Changing them also requires informed free choices. This is the human moral political project. Critique: why does God allow these structures to root so deeply and enduringly? Human to animal, what's the difference? When suffering is inflicted by humans on animals, abuse, exploitation, cruelty, the free will defense says, this too is a consequence of human free choices. But special difficulties. Animals aren't moral agents growing morally like humans, so the growth from suffering model soul-making weakens for the victims. Major objection: why didn't God set a lower pain threshold for animals? Or why is systemic abuse, e.g. on an industrial scale, so possible? Common responses: unified laws of nature. A orderly causal biological world where human freedom has meaning also has real biological consequences. Pain as a warning survival mechanism. Limiting pain equals limiting function. If animal pain were ineffective or always muted, survival and ecosystems would be disrupted. Critique: this response still isn't convincing for extreme intensities of human-inflicted suffering, and defers to human justice ethics. 3 common complementary responses, alongside free will defense. Higher relational goods and virtues. A large part of human goods, loyal love, courage, forgiveness, justice-seeking, can only fully emerge in a world with real risk of evil. Afterlife and final justice. Many traditions emphasize that the scales of justice aren't balanced in this world. Divine hiddenness. If God always prevented evils with overt intervention, epistemic faith freedom would vanish, turning the relationship with God into response to naked coercion. Fair summary. The free will defense effectively shows why God's existence is not logically incompatible with moral evil. But evidentially/probabilistically, tough questions remain. The immense volume, extreme intensity, unjust distribution, and the situation of victims who have no chance for growth, especially animals. Complementary responses, stable laws of nature, risk-conditioned relational goods, afterlife justice, epistemic skepticism, form a network of defenses. Their persuasiveness depends on the audience's philosophical theological judgment. Section 2: Natural evils. Definition and examples. Natural evils include all sufferings and destructions arising from non-human phenomena. Earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, storms, floods, droughts. Massive meteor impacts. Natural climate changes, non-human induced. These events can claim countless victims, humans and animals, adults and children, poor and rich. Why are they problematic? If we say about moral evils, this is human free choice. In natural evils, there is no human moral agent, so the question sharpens. If God is omnipotent and omnibenevolent, why design a world where such blind and merciless disasters occur? Common responses and defenses. A. Stable laws of nature. For a reliable and predictable world, where we can make decisions and take responsibility, natural laws must be stable. The same laws that enable agriculture, transportation, engineering, and life sometimes inevitably create destructive conditions, e.g., tectonic pressures that build mountains and cause earthquakes. If God constantly bent these laws to prevent disasters, the world would become unstable and unreliable, undermining human freedom and responsibility. Objection: even with stable laws, why couldn't God tune the parameters so disasters are fewer or milder? Common responses. Changing one parameter might lead to major disruptions in other ecosystem parts, e.g., without volcanic activity, mineral cycles and land formation would be impaired. But critics say this still doesn't explain why the intensity and scope of disasters are so high. B. Soul-making explanation. John Hick's idea: natural evils provide space for human growth and virtue formation, courage, empathy, solidarity, self-sacrifice, and meaning-making. If the world were a safe park, without danger and suffering, many deep human virtues would never emerge. Objection: this argument may work for small or moderate sufferings, but for massive disasters, 2004 tsunami, Bam earthquake, Pompeii volcano, that destroy thousands instantly, virtue growth for victims is meaningless, since they have no opportunity to grow. See natural evil as consequence of moral evil. Some religious traditions say, part of natural evils result from the fall or corruption of the world due to human moral sin, e.g., religious narratives about Adam's fall. In this view, the natural system has become chaotic due to the rupture in human-God relations. Objection: this explanation isn't convincing for those who don't accept specific religious narratives, and even for believers, it raises many ethical questions. Why do animals or children pay for others' sins? D. Skeptical theism. We humans may not have the capacity to understand all of God's reasons. Absence of an apparent reason for us doesn't mean absence of a real reason for God. Objection: if overused, this defense line can practically justify anything and shut down ethical dialogue. Scientific non-religious responses. From a naturalistic view, natural evils aren't evil in a metaphysical sense. They're just unintended consequences of natural processes. The problem of evil in this framework shifts to how to cope with this reality, not how to reconcile it with God's attributes. Toughest challenges for religious defense. Intensity. Why must disasters be so widespread and rapid that they leave no time for reaction or rescue? Unjust distribution. Why do the poorest and most vulnerable communities, with the least ability to defend and rebuild, suffer the most? Irrelevance to moral growth. Many victims don't even get a chance to reflect or change. Animal victims. Animals are also killed in these disasters, without fitting into human frameworks of virtue building. Section 3. Biological evils or sufferings from diseases and life processes. Definition and examples. Biological evils include all sufferings and deaths arising from biological and life processes, not from moral choices or purely physical phenomena. Examples: infectious diseases, like plague, COVID, Ebola. Cancers, genetic diseases, birth defects. Parasitic and bacterial illnesses. Food chains involving predation and animals eating each other. These have existed in nature millions of years before humans, so they can't be attributed solely to human behavior. Why are they problematic? Unlike moral evil, there's no human decision-maker here. Unlike some natural disasters, suffering here is prolonged, chronic, and gradual, e.g., painful diseases lasting years. Victims can be humans or animals, and they haven't chosen this suffering. Common responses and defenses. A. Evolutionary biology. In nature, competition, predation, and disease are part of the natural selection mechanism. Diseases can regulate populations, prevent population explosions, and maintain ecosystem balance. From this view, diseases aren't bad but have ecological functions. Objection: having a biological function doesn't necessarily resolve the ethical or theological dimension, especially if an omnibenevolent and omnipotent being designed the system. B. Soul-making in biological dimension. Confronting diseases can lead to scientific progress, social solidarity, and virtue cultivation. Historical example: advances in medicine and public health after pandemics. Objection: these benefits usually go to future generations, while initial victims suffer intensely and fruitlessly. C. Evolutionary freedom. Some theologians say, God has given the natural process freedom to develop itself, thus this freedom leads to beauty and diversity but also painful consequences. In this view, diseases are part of the cost of nature's freedom. Objection: why should nature's freedom come at the price of endless pain for innocent beings? Couldn't a version of life exist with less death and suffering? D. Biological evil and animals. Predation and being eaten is one of the most fundamental realities of life. Many animals in nature experience violent and painful deaths. If God is omnibenevolent, why design this machine fueled by suffering? Some say this is a result of the world's fall or deviation from the original plan. Others respond, life without food chains and predatory death might be biologically unsustainable. Special challenges for theodicy, theological defense. Sick children, suffering of children and infants even in the womb, is hard to reconcile with the idea of moral testing. Pre-human animals. Millions of years before humans, animals were preyed upon and died, so biological suffering existed independently of human sin or choice. Cruel nature. Much of life's beauty depends on cycles of violence and disease, which is problematic from a human ethical view. Section 4. Compound and complex evils. Definition. Compound evils occur when human factors, natural phenomena, and biological processes interact simultaneously or sequentially, creating a complex and often escalating cycle of suffering. These make understanding and analyzing the problem of evil harder, as no single source for the suffering can be identified. Examples: Are pandemics exacerbated by human error? Example, the Spanish flu pandemic 1918, where its rapid spread was partly due to World War I, mass population movements and news censorship. Here, disease, biological evil, combined with war conditions, moral evil. B. Natural disasters and inefficient management. An earthquake, natural evil, can be destructive, but with weak infrastructure and poor crisis management, casualties multiply. Example, Haiti earthquake 2010, which beyond ground shaking losses, created a humanitarian crisis due to disorganization and government corruption. C. Climate change. Many floods, droughts and wildfires today stem from climate change, much of which is caused by human activities, moral evil. These changes exacerbate natural disasters, natural evil, and lead to disease spread and food shortages, biological evil. D. War and famines. Wars typically destroy agricultural infrastructure and food distribution, leading to famine. Famine then brings epidemics. This cycle exemplifies a combination of all three types of evil. Why is this type of evil more challenging? Ambiguity in responsibility. What part to attribute to nature and what to humans? Domino effect. One event can trigger a chain of other evils. Harder accountability. With multiple origins, solutions must be multi-layered, often beyond the capacity of societies or governments. Common responses and their critiques. Divine test or warning. Some say these events are warnings for humans to return to the right path. Objection. Victims are often the weakest and most innocent. Consequence of freedom and its interaction with nature. Human freedom plus nature's freedom equals likelihood of complex disasters. Objection. This calculus may not be ethically defensible if it creates immense and disproportionate suffering. Link to the overall evil discussion. Compound evils show that the problem of evil isn't just a philosophical debate about why does God allow it, but also a practical puzzle. How can we minimize the impact of suffering even assuming factors beyond control?